My favourite genre of horror recently, along with everyone else on the internet, is liminal horror and the uncanny valley. It's scary, it's nostalgic, it doesn't rely on cheap jump scares for the most part, and it managed to last a whole 2 weeks before the 10-year-olds hopped onto it and made it SCP 2.0. The original Backrooms is what got me and most others really into it, and it goes hand in hand with the uncanny valley, which is one of the only tropes that even has a chance of scaring me. They're kind of the same principle applied to different things. Liminal spaces are the places that look off, not quite right but strangely familiar, like a cardboard cutout of a place, the idea of a place. The uncanny valley are the faces that look not quite right, familiar but not real per se, the idea of a human being. Minecraft is, well, Minecraft. Everyone knows Minecraft. Even people who don't typically play games know it. It's everywhere. Recently I've begun my annual 2-week Minecraft phase, and as usual I let myself be a bit of a grumpy grandma and mumble that it's not quite what it used to be, and it really isn't. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It's evolved with its player base and is technically a better and more expansive game now than ever. I've been playing Minecraft ever since about 2012 when it was released to Xbox 360. I was around 8 or 9 then. I didn't have an Xbox at home, so I had to go to my cousins to play it. What I did have, however, was a crappy laptop that I would write stories and play flash games on. My laptop could not handle Minecraft's full release, but it could handle the alpha version. I watched a YouTube tutorial on how to download it and ended up playing the alpha version of Minecraft up until I got an Xbox One in 2015. Minecraft's alpha version is a different experience altogether than Minecraft now. You have very few blocks, very little landscape variety, and due to my laptop's low quality, my render distance was going between short and tiny, making the game look like Silent Hill half the time. I don't remember the exact version, but I remember it did have the nether, so it must have been a later alpha build. I spent so much time playing Minecraft. It was my favourite game and I must have put hundreds of hours into it. I remember one night playing it in bed on a rainy day at my granny's house. I was surviving, just walking around, exploring, trying to find something to do. And all of a sudden the silence just felt more intense. Other than the crunching of grass, there was nothing. The fog started to feel less like a mechanic to make the game run better, but more like an entity of its own right. Always following, obscuring the world from my sight, keeping me guessing. I stopped to take it all in, and it seemed like the footsteps audio stopped a moment later than I did. I turned around looking for something, but not knowing what, only to be met with more fog. I looked at the bright green grass and blue skies and felt something like déjà vu, but not quite as strong. I felt a little scared, but mostly just sad, like I was revisiting a memory. Then I saw a cow and snapped out of it. The music started again and I went back to exploring. I had experienced my first bout of what I like to call the Minecraft creeps. I still play the game, but I sort of tried to watch something or listen to something while playing after that. These moments definitely still happened on the Xbox edition, but not as frequently or as strongly. It wasn't until I got older that I discovered my experience wasn't entirely unique. Most people, adult or child, had a similar sudden awareness of how chilling Minecraft used to be. With the popularity of liminal spaces in the last few years, more and more people now know that what they were feeling was a sort of liminal terror. But why? How can a game so simple elicit liminality and provoke fear of the uncanny valley so effectively? I'm certainly not the first to discuss or look into this topic. I have a couple of my own opinions which I haven't seen said before, but being honest, originality is difficult to achieve on a well-documented topic. I'm looking to explore some of the popular theories and discuss some of my own to explore what makes Minecraft such a liminal horror experience, with a specific focus on the Alpha Edition. But before that, let's discuss the elephant in the room, shall we? Herobrine. I'm not gonna lie, I did believe in Herobrine as a kid, and I did go on some expeditions to find him. I tried to summon him like the YouTubers did. I watched a pseudo-documentary on him and believed he was real for a good couple of years when I started playing. But while it did creep me out as a kid, I find that the world of Minecraft itself is really what stuck with me. Finding Herobrine would be scary, but the idea of there being no one else but you felt kind of scarier to me. The vastness of the world and the isolation led to me having my first existential crisis before I was even 10. I love Herobrine and what he represents for Minecraft and the creepypasta community. He was scary back then, and while he's a bit goofy now, I still have so much love for him and those old Minecraft YouTube videos trying to convince kids he was real. I don't see many people talking about what really made him scary though. Most people chalk it up to just the idea of being watched, but no other Minecraft bogeyman like the Entity 303 or Null has had such a lasting effect in the community. So what's the difference between Herobrine and those other guys? I think it's two things. Firstly, he doesn't look intentionally scary, In fact, he looks just like us, but with white, vacant eyes. Like whoever it is trying to look like us, trying to look human. Basically the definition of Uncanny Valley. Looks mostly human, but not quite. Secondly is his warning signs that play into the liminality of the world. The legend goes that seeing floating structures, man-made looking caves, and unnatural terrain signifies Herobrines in your world. These are all things that generate naturally in Minecraft worlds, and already look a little bit off. Like a corruption of the world that isn't big enough to destroy it, but big enough to signify that something is terribly wrong. He's a classic Uncanny Valley monster that makes you question if you placed that random cobblestone block, or did someone or something else. All of the lore thrust upon him afterwards, like him being Notch's dead brother, really took away from the believability and the scariness for me, and for many others, but I think his original presence and the white eye story that inspired him kind of has to be mentioned in any Minecraft horror related video. But back to our main topic. What is it about the world of Minecraft Alpha that is so very liminal? Let's start with a simple one, the colours. The Alpha edition of Minecraft is very bright, but why is bright scarier? Wouldn't darkness be more mysterious? Not necessarily. It's too bright. The grass is too green, the water's too blue, and the fog is too white. It looks like how a kid would colour in a picture. It's the perfect palette depicting our world, or what the idea of our world looks like. This same logic applies to the shapes. Of course, first off we have our obvious cube shape that Minecraft is known for, but perfect cubes rarely materialise naturally on Earth. So to see a world trying to emulate ours with such a clearly man-made shape feels odd to us. The trees are another example. They all looked the same back then. They had a wooden stem and green leaves around the top, like a kid's drawing of a tree, with little detail or variation. Any houses we built were square with a janky triangular roof if you were really crafty, exactly like a kid's drawing of a house. Overall, everything looks like the simplistic perception of a thing instead of a realistic depiction. It's a world that looks how you would describe Earth, or a tree, or a house. Vague, but recognisable. Uncanny. Therefore, when some of the early clunky world generation would leave us with unforeseen structures like floating islands or perfect structures, it feels odd, as does the unnatural cubic lighting. We wouldn't describe the world like that, so why is it here? The best comparison to Minecraft in terms of the liminally perfect world, in my opinion, is Bliss, or We Call It Green Hills by Charles O'Rear, which most of us know as a classic Microsoft wallpaper. Compare the colours for a moment. Perfect, vibrant whites, greens and blues. Unnaturally vibrant. The terrain is a perfect little hill, large enough to have terrain variety, but not an obstacle. The sky is perfectly blue with a healthy amount of clouds. When first looking at the image, many accused the photographer of Photoshop. It was too perfect. The image led the way for subgenres such as ergofrutiger and weirdcore, which eventually evolved to give us the internet's current obsession with liminal spaces. So with how similar Minecraft's world looks, it's easy to see how it's connected with liminality. Let's move on to the sound, shall we? The classic Minecraft sound effects were harsh and grainy, crunchy. The music is haunting and beautiful. Lots of liminal slideshows use Minecraft music because of how nostalgic it is. But even before it became embedded in our childhoods, most of the music tracks felt sad, tragic even, bittersweet, like looking through an old picture book. The music felt like childhood to us even when we were children. The sadness in the music makes us emotional, vulnerable, making fear all the more easier to access. The music is soft and light compared to the harsh sounds of grass being crushed and wood being broken. They contrast unnaturally. Even more effective, however, was the lack of music. Whenever the game went silent in this way, it felt lonely. In a world where there's only us, music feels like our only company. Loneliness is a key factor of liminal spaces all in itself. Whenever we remember a certain place, we often remember it without people in it. Minecraft constantly looks like a memory in this way. Villagers didn't exist until the beta. Other than hostile mobs, animals, and the plants around us were the only signs of life. It's vast, isolating, and induces paranoia. You start wondering about what it would be like if someone else was there with you, then worrying that someone is here with you, before realising that no one is, and that realisation is even scarier. It's you. Only you. We have no goals or plans, leading us down unwittingly into an existential experience. Existentialism also goes hand in hand with liminality. The more we look back on the places we've seen, and how familiar it all looks in the end, it leads you to ask yourself what's the point of it all. This also leads you into a vulnerable mindset, making you more likely to be creeped out by the world. This mindset makes it easier to question your current state. You're sitting there, playing a game about nothing. It won't change anything. You can't change anything. You only exist. The only world that you can shape is the world of Minecraft, but the odd aesthetic and mysterious nature of the alpha makes it feel like it's not your world. You feel detached from this game, showing the idea of a world, how the world should look. The game feels like an entity, wanting you to enjoy it and claim it as your own. Claim its world as your own, create your own world in it. But it isn't inviting. It's cold, unnatural, lonely, sad, barren. It feels like a facade. Minecraft's world is the perfect description of our world. That's the problem. The world isn't perfect. The sky is not that blue and the grass is not that green. It's ever-changing. Minecraft's world structure almost seems as if it's trying to overcompensate for its simple graphics. Sure, there are only pixel cubes, but there's sand separating the land and sea, clouds in the sky, and night cycles. It's real. They promise. You may be thinking it's not that deep, and you're right, it isn't. But in a game where you explore, break blocks and place blocks, your mind, well, it wanders. Nowadays, the world of Minecraft is constantly stimulating, with different structures and contrasting biomes. But back then there was you, wood, dirt and cobblestone for the most part. You were lonely, paranoid, lost in thought. In the iconic Alpha Halloween update, the Nether was added. It didn't scare me as much as the overworld. It looked like nothing I'd ever seen in my world. That made it more accessible somehow. It wasn't trying to convince me of its realism despite its unique graphics. It wasn't a facade of my world. All of this makes Minecraft Alpha an extremely liminal experience, and that's back when we were kids playing it. Now Minecraft's earlier versions are more liminal than ever. Our faint feeling of familiarity is now transformed into complete nostalgia. We remember our first dirt house we built and the first zombie we killed. We remember it as a bright and happy time for us. So when we load up the previous version, we feel disturbed at how empty it is, how familiar and yet completely different it feels. Our memories version and the actual version of the game contrast. Oftentimes that's what liminality is all about. Contrast. The contrast between realism and surrealism. In between spaces. It feels like there's something more behind the curtain of fog, but that something is a constantly moving goalpost. The alpha was and is mysterious. Back then, Notch would implement Friday updates where he'd add something new and leave the players to discover it themselves, making Minecraft creepypastas and legends more believable, making it unclear just how much there was to explore. Even now it feels like there's a slim possibility that the player base hasn't found everything that Notch implemented yet. And with real in-game lore being quite dark at times and the presence of Disc 11 and 13, it feels entirely plausible that something darker remains to be discovered. Fear of the unknown, nostalgia, unnatural contrast, and the seeming facade of our world all link together to create an unintentional liminal horror experience. And honestly, I love it. It feels special. Minecraft feels like home in theory, but so distant in reality. It's a delicious contradiction. Minecraft's alpha was simply not quite right. It's hard to put your finger on, but it felt closed off yet deceptively welcoming. Its simplicity felt like it was trying to lure you in. Here is a world, now make it yours. It looks exactly like the real world, but not at all. The colours are just as they should be. The terrain is just as it should be. The music is calming. The sounds are accurate. There is only you and what you choose to create. It may look familiar, but it's procedurally generated for you. This world is for you. It's yours. I promise. And when you come back years later, it will still be yours. You had fun here once. It's exactly as you remember it, but not at all. This world was for you. This world still is for you.